And I want to actually step away specifically from the NSA spying part of this just for a bit. And I actually want to move on to another agency's spying, and that's the DEA. Okay, so granted, we're going to get to this. The DEA's spying is actually connected to the NSA spying, and we are going to get to that. But Reuters had an amazing piece this last week on the DEA, which is the Drug Enforcement Agency, a DEA unit that is known as SOD. SOD stands for Special Operations Division. We're not talking about a Superman villain. We're not talking about Zod. We're talking about SOD. So reading from the Reuters article, this SOD division funnels, quote, information from intelligence intercepts, wiretaps, informants, and a massive database of telephone records to authorities across the nation to help them launch criminal investigations of Americans, end quote. Because a lot of the big talk that's happened about NSA, and people seem to not care, they trust the government when they say that the NSA is just spying on foreigners. They're not actually spying on Americans, which, again, the evidence is actually showing the exact opposite of that. You know, the evidence is showing that, again, the NSA actually has a massive database of Americans' communication records, but they still believe, well, it's all about foreign terrorists, and that's fine. But again, this story is about spying on Americans. So the Reuters report actually says about the SOD division, they report that 24 partner agencies actually feed intelligence into the DEA SOD division. They include the FBI, the CIA, the IRS, Homeland Security, and yes, also the NSA. However, folks, here's where this story gets a lot more disturbing and a lot more interesting. Reading from Reuters, quote, documents show that federal agents are trained to recreate the investigative trail to effectively cover up where the information originated, a practice that some experts say violates the defendant's constitutional right to a fair trial. If defendants don't know how an investigation began, they cannot know how to ask to review potential sources of exculpatory evidence, information that could reveal entrapment, mistakes, or biased witnesses. Reading on a little further into the report, remember that the utilization of SOD cannot be revealed or discussed in any investigative function. That's what a document presented to agents reads. Again, I'll read it again. This is a document that the DEA gives to agents. It reads, remember, utilization of SOD cannot be revealed or discussed in any investigative function. The document specifically directs agents to admit the SOD's involvement from investigative reports, affidavits, discussions with prosecutors, and courtroom testimony. Agents are instructed then to use, quote, normal investigative techniques to recreate the information provided by SOD, end quote. That's from Reuters, this amazing article on this program. So what this is, the DEA calls this parallel construction. That's the term for it, parallel construction. So it doesn't matter that we got the initial information on you illegally, as long as we construct the appearance of legality parallel to the illegality, as long as we have this parallel construction of the law, then everything is fine. Everything is hunky-dory. I know this is a little confusing, so the article actually gives you kind of an example. So here is actually an example of what might happen in a given case that comes through the DEA's SOD division. So the SOD unit gets a tip on a supposed drug crime from some agency. Maybe it's from the FBI, maybe it's from the CIA, it might be from a foreign government, maybe from an undercover agent, whatever. It also might be perhaps from a secret unconstitutional NSA wiretap. We don't know. The NSA is wiretapping everything. They are storing all this information. It could be coming, and they do. NSA is a partner organization with the DEA SOD program. So the SOD unit gets a tip from some secret source they then tell local law enforcement to look for, this is for example, to look for a specific car at a specific place at a specific time. So they tell, Joe the state police officer to be at this certain place at this certain time looking for this blue Nissan car, right? So then Joe the officer pulls that person over, pretending that this is some kind of random traffic stop, maybe for speeding, a headlight being out, something like that. They pull them over under some different motivation, supposedly. Then, if Joe the cop finds drugs, they arrest the person. Then, the arresting officer is then instructed. He is instructed by the DEA to lie and say that they didn't get a tip from the DEA SOD unit. No, they didn't get it from them. They just happened to be there. And they just happened to pull this random person over. And looky here. Look what we found here. We just happened to find these drugs. Lucky us, and lucky America. Another dangerous drug offender is going off to prison. Hooray for the USA. But here's the deal, and I'm pretty sure you're getting this by now. Lying about that, lying about a criminal case, lying about legal proceedings is illegal. It is illegal to do that. It is a clear violation of the defendant's constitutional rights. Concealing evidence, and that is what this is. This is concealing evidence. Where the initial investigation begins is evidence. Concealing evidence is against the law. So the big question we all need to be asking about this is, why is the DEA instructing law enforcement to lie? Why is the DEA instructing law enforcement to break the law? Why are they doing that? Now, some defenders of this program say that the reason they're doing it is to safeguard sources, which, to be fair, you have to defend, so you have to take care of sources. You don't want sources getting killed or anything like that. But the truth is, that's overall a BS claim. There already are tons of legal safeguards and tons of legal mechanisms that exist currently to protect sources. That exists in this day and age. If there's an undercover person and they give information, there actually are ways to allow them to testify legally and keep their identity secret. That actually does, those safeguards actually do exist. So the safeguard excuse is actually a load. It's a load, folks. So the obvious answer is into why they're covering up and telling these people to lie is, in my opinion, and again, this is just, is because the information is coming from a source that is most likely illegal. And that some of these places that they're getting this information from is actually getting the information illegally. Like perhaps, I don't know, the secret giant NSA database. Perhaps. The EFF, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, actually reports that drug cases actually made up 20% of all criminal cases filed in 2012. 20%. That is 1 out of 5 federal criminal cases in all of last year, all of 2012. Let me ask you guys something. How many of those cases might have gotten their evidence illegally? How many? Really? Seriously? And that's just federal. That's just on the federal level. SOD, the DEA SOD group, gives tips to state officials, to local law enforcement as well. And look, we talk about this on the show a good deal. I'm not going to take time right now to get into the whole, stupidity of the war on drugs, the racism on the war on drugs, because obviously it's wrong and racist. But really, the question really does need to be asked about this is, how many people are in jail right now that maybe would not be in jail if this evidence hadn't gotten through these programs illegally? How many people are in jail right at this instance on drug charges that were gotten through illegal means? And if you think And again, this is where I'm going back to my friends on the left who still attack Snowden and still attack Greenwald and want to spend all this time. If you seriously think that the NSA and the war on drugs aren't connected at all, if you think there's no connection to that at all, you are lying to yourself. You are lying to yourself. If you think that warrantless spying, illegal spying, and the drug war are not connected, you're nuts. And this is a DEA unit, the DEA unit here. We're talking about drug crimes, money laundering. But let's ask another question. What about other law enforcement units? Are any other law enforcement units, I don't know, could they also perhaps be lying about where their investigations are originating? So just take a minute here, because I know pretty much most people on the left are very much against the war on drugs and the prison industrial complex. My friends on the left who are still harping on day in and day out, spending a lot of time and effort attacking Edward Snowden. Let me ask you again, which side of history do you want to be on when this final story is told? We'll be right back.